It's 6:02 a.m. at Dallas-Fort Worth. Jane arrives just as the boarding door clicks shut. She's missed her flight by 2 minutes. And in 2025, that tiny delay could mean losing not just this flight, but her entire round-trip ticket. American Airlines will cancel her return leg unless she acts fast. Delta gives a 2-hour window for free standby, but only if she knows the right move. The rules have quietly changed since COVID. Stricter, more confusing, and sometimes unforgiving. If you've ever wondered what really happens if you miss your flight in 2025 and whether you're truly out of options or have one last shot, the answers might surprise you. Jane stands at the American Airlines counter, boarding pass in hand, trying to steady her nerves. Missing a flight in 2025 isn't just an inconvenience. It can unravel your whole trip. For American, the clock starts ticking the moment the plane pulls back from the gate. If you don't cancel or change your ticket before departure, the airline system flags you as a no-show. That doesn't just affect the missed segment. On many non-refundable round-trip fares, American will automatically void your return ticket too. That means the seat you paid for on the way home is now lost. No warning, no refund. This isn't just a rumor. American's published policy states that failing to notify them before departure causes forfeiture of all remaining flights on the itinerary. So if Jane's return from Miami was on that same ticket, she's not just out the morning flight. She'll have to buy a whole new ticket to get home. That can run hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars higher. Especially on short notice. It's a policy most travelers don't realize until it's too late. In fact, travel forums are full of stories like Jane's. One missed check-in, then a rude surprise at the end of vacation. And while refundable tickets are more forgiving, the majority of travelers book non-refundable fares. That flexibility is gone unless you act before the flight leaves. The American rep on duty doesn't have much leeway. Their computer shows Jane as a no-show for the outbound, and the return segment is already canceled. The remedy? Call before departure. Sometimes even 3 minutes makes the difference between rebooking for a small fee or losing the whole value of the ticket. In 2025, the post-pandemic rulebook is clear. If you miss your flight, your return trip isn't safe unless you tell the airline right away. As Jane pleads for help, the agent scans for options, but the system has already moved on. For hundreds of thousands of travelers each year, this is the moment the journey ends, not with a delay, but with a complete wipeout of plans. The only hope is fast communication, and even then, the airline gets the final say. Jane's instinct is to cut her losses and find another way home, but not every carrier closes the door so quickly. At the next counter, a Delta reservation specialist listens as Jane explains what happened. On Delta, missing your flight doesn't always mean the end of the line. In 2025, Delta's same-day standby window offers a quiet lifeline if you act fast. Unlike the harsh no-show policy at American, Delta allows you to request no-fee, same-day standby for any earlier flight, as long as you do it within 24 hours of your original departure. Here's the catch. You need to make your move quickly. If you show up at the airport or contact Delta within 2 hours after the scheduled departure, there's still a chance to be added to the standby list, especially if you're not holding a basic economy ticket. For Jane, this means heading straight to the gate, or if she prefers, to the customer service desk. Both can process standby requests, but experienced travelers know that gate agents often have more leeway when it comes to squeezing you onto a nearly full plane. Delta doesn't charge a fee for standby itself. As long as your fare is main cabin or higher, you're eligible. There's no guarantee you'll get a seat, but being early on the list certainly helps. The agent confirms Jane's details, checks availability, and prints a new boarding pass with a tiny STBY stamp. She's now waiting on a seat for the next flight to Miami. For those with elite status, like Delta Gold, Platinum, or Diamond Medallion, priority on the list gives a meaningful edge. But even for regular travelers, this window offers a reset button, provided you move before the system closes your reservation. The process is simple. Reach out at the counter, call Delta Reservations, or use the Fly Delta app. Just keep an eye on the time. Moments later, Jane's standby clears. She boards the plane, not having paid a cent in rebooking fees. The lesson at Delta, missing a flight isn't an instant wipeout, but it's a race against the clock. Waiting even an hour too long, or showing up with a basic economy ticket, can slam the door shut. For everyone else, the standby window is the difference between a ruined trip and a minor hiccup. Jane takes a deep breath in the food court, scrolling through her wallet app for a backup plan. She remembers the Amex Platinum card tucked behind her ID, a card she mostly uses for points, but suddenly feels like a lifeline. In 2025, premium credit cards have quietly become the insurance policy most travelers do not realize they are carrying. Here is how it works. If a flight is delayed by more than 6 hours, think weather, mechanical issues, even an air traffic control hold, Amex Platinum can reimburse up to $500 per trip. That covers hotel rooms, meals, taxis, and even toiletries. The catch: the delay has to be caused by something the airline or Mother Nature controls, not by missing the flight due to traffic or a late alarm. The expenses need to be charged to the card, and the trip must have been paid for with that card initially. But as long as you tick those boxes, a 6-hour wait turns from a disaster into a night at the airport hotel with dinner on Amex's dime. Jane calls the Amex concierge, expecting a familiar maze of hold music and transfers. Instead, she is connected to a rep trained for moments exactly like this. The rep asks for her flight details, confirms the length and cause of her delay, and walks her through next steps. Book what you need, keep every receipt, and submit everything once your trip resumes. If a hotel charges $179 a night and airport food racks up another $60, it all counts. As long as the delay passes the 6-hour threshold, Jane can claim it, up to $500 per covered trip. The difference is immediate. Where the airline offered a wait list and a shrug, her Amex rep provides a roadmap. Here is what is covered, here is how to get it back. Jane books a room at the closest airport hotel, orders takeout, and stretches out on fresh sheets instead of a plastic bench. The next morning, she files her claim online, uploads receipts, and the reimbursement post to her statement within 2 weeks. No pleading with airline supervisors or chasing call centers overseas. It is not just Amex. Cards like Chase Sapphire Reserve and Capital One Venture X offer similar trip delay coverage, but with slightly different rules. Some kick in after 12 hours, others after 6. The lesson is the same. When airlines stall, your credit card can step in as long as you know to use it. Jane's meltdown in the terminal transforms into a story of resilience, not because the airline bent the rules, but because her backup plan was already in her pocket. For travelers in 2025, these hidden perks are not just marketing. They are the difference between a ruined trip and a soft landing. Jane sits on a stiff bench, scrolling through travel insurance quotes on her phone. Years ago, she would have skipped it. After all, her American Express already covers trip delays. But in 2025, standalone travel insurance has become its own safety net, protecting against risks that credit cards quietly carve out. When Jane calls a travel insurance adjuster, she is hoping for a simple yes or no. Instead, she gets a set of questions. Are all her flights on one ticket? Is she worried about hurricanes or missing a flight because of traffic? Does she have any non-refundable hotel bookings waiting at her destination? Standalone policies cover a wider net of disasters than most credit cards, but not all chaos is protected. For instance, if Jane oversleeps or gets stuck in a traffic jam, no insurer will reimburse her missed flight. Those are considered personal errors, not covered events. But if her flight is canceled by an airline strike or she needs medical care mid-trip, her insurance becomes indispensable. Severe weather, sudden illness, or even a lost passport. These are the classic reasons claims get paid. The adjuster lists them one by one, careful to note that common exclusions are buried in the fine print. Policies almost never cover missed flights caused by personal oversight, like mixing up departure times or showing up at the wrong gate. The price gives Jane pause. For a $2,500 trip, the cost runs around $175, about 7% of her total expenses. She asks if it is worth it. The adjuster replies with examples. A traveler stuck in Madrid after a medical emergency, who recouped $3,000 in hospital and rebooking fees. A couple who lost $900 when a passport was stolen, refunded minus a small deductible. But then there is the case of a family that missed a morning flight after their taxi broke down. Claim denied. Mechanical issues with the airline are covered, but missed connections from ground delays usually are not. Jane weighs her options. Her credit card covers delays of more than 6 hours, but only if the airline causes it. Travel insurance, on the other hand, fills in the blanks for those bigger emergencies, especially on international trips or when she has booked several hotels and tours that cannot be refunded. The policy also includes medical evacuation, a benefit her credit card lacks. The adjuster leaves her with a reminder. Always read the policy. Exclusions. Coverage for flight interruptions, lost luggage, and hospital stays is robust. But trip interruptions for simple mistakes, like sleeping through an alarm, will not be reimbursed. As Jane clicks to purchase her policy, she realizes that while it cannot fix every travel hiccup, it shields her from the costs that matter most. For travelers who book non-refundable tickets, multi-leg journeys, or trips abroad, standalone insurance will not prevent a missed flight, but it can keep an ordinary mishap from turning into a financial disaster. Jane's phone buzzes with an estimated time of arrival, only 17 minutes past the scheduled departure. She's not the only one running late. At American's gate, a couple waits anxiously, clutching a mechanic's receipt printed just an hour earlier. This is where the so-called flat tire rule quietly comes into play. While American Airlines won't shout about it on their website, agents at the gate know the code. Show up within 2 hours of your missed flight and present proof of an unavoidable delay. A tow truck invoice, a police report, or a photo of a broken fan belt, and you're often eligible for a fee-waived rebooking. The clock is everything. Arriving at the counter even 90 minutes late, as long as it's before that 2-hour cutoff, keeps the door open. The agent taps through options, glancing at the documents Jane pulls from her phone. A time-stamped text from the auto club, a photo of her car on a flatbed. It's not just about the story, it's about evidence. Gate agents have the discretion to override booked-out fares when the reason is clear and the paperwork is tight. Acceptance depends on the agent's mood, the paper trail you bring, and sometimes how calmly you plead your case. But the policy itself is surprisingly cut and dried. Arrive within 2 hours, present verifiable proof, and the change fee is often waived. Jane's agent checks for seats on the next Miami departure. No fee, just a new boarding pass, marked IRREG, in the system for irregular operation. Not all excuses work, just I hit traffic rarely cuts it. But a tow receipt or a time-stamped road service text? That's different. The flat tire rule isn't a blanket guarantee, but in 2025, it's one of the last true gateside loopholes. Miss your flight by more than 2 hours or fail to provide documentation, and you're back to buying a whole new ticket. But for travelers who can prove their bona fides, American's hidden policy can turn a ruined morning into a saved trip. No supervisor calls or angry escalations required. Next time, keep every receipt. At the gate, evidence is your best friend. Jane's itinerary for her next trip to Europe looks smooth, until she notices an ODD 7-hour layover in Frankfurt. The question lingers: if she misses her connecting flight in the European Union, what rights does she actually have? Unlike the United States, travelers in Europe benefit from some of the strongest passenger protections in the world, thanks to Regulation EC 261. Let's break it down. If an airline-controlled delay or cancellation causes you to miss a connecting flight on a single booking, say a mechanical problem out of Paris leads to a missed connection in Munich, the airline is required by law to reroute you to your final destination at the very next opportunity and in the same class of service. There's no 7-day waiting period or come back later loophole. The responsibility to get you there falls squarely on the airline, and the law expects them to prove they offered the earliest possible alternative. That might mean booking you on a partner airline or even handing you over to a competitor if it gets you to your destination faster. Missing a connection because of your own mistake, like oversleeping or mistiming the transfer, doesn't trigger EC 261. But when the airline is at fault, delays, cancellations, strikes, or denied boarding, you have concrete rights. If the rerouting means you arrive at your final stop 3 hours or more late, you're owed compensation. 250 euros for short-haul flights, 400 euros for medium-haul, and up to 600 euros for long-haul journeys over 3,500 kilometers. Airlines also have to take care of you during the wait, providing meals, hotel rooms if needed, and sometimes even phone cards or taxi rides. At Frankfurt, a uniformed passenger rights officer circulates near the transfer desks, answering questions and handing out printed EC 261 leaflets. Jane is surprised to learn that in the European Union, these rules aren't just small print, they're actively enforced. The officer explains, if you're rerouted and the new flight is also delayed, you can claim compensation for both the inconvenience of the original delay and the late arrival at your destination. New case law means airlines can no longer dodge responsibility by offering rerouting alone. They must also pay if the delays add up. To get these benefits, travelers must keep every document: boarding passes, delay notices, meal receipts. Airlines may push back or offer travel vouchers instead of cash, but under EC 261, you have the right to insist on a direct payout. If the airline can't reroute you within a reasonable time frame, you're entitled to a full refund plus a flight home if you're stranded abroad. Jane takes a moment to imagine her options, knowing that, in Europe, she's not at the mercy of airline goodwill, but protected by clear, enforceable law. For older travelers used to the patchwork of U.S. airline policies, these rights add a powerful tool to the travel toolbox. Jane reviews her itinerary, highlighter in hand, determined not to leave her next trip to chance. Booking smarter starts long before the day of departure. For domestic connections, she aims for a 3-hour window, not just the airline's minimum. International trips, 6 hours is her rule, even if it means longer airport waits. These buffers are not just for comfort. Industry data show that stretching layovers from tight squeezes to a relaxed 3 hours can halve the risk of a missed connection compared to the default minimum, especially at complex airports. Jane avoids that tempting 45-minute hop at Dallas-Fort Worth, remembering that fast connections sound good until you meet a late inbound flight. Her checklist is simple: stick to the same airline or alliance whenever possible. Double-check all flights are on one itinerary and use flexible tickets if the fare difference is small. She sets reminders to check in online as soon as it opens and always enables flight alerts on her phone. Each step is an investment in peace of mind. Time added now, headaches prevented later. On the day of travel, she will have one less thing to worry about. Her buffer is already built in. The morning of departure, Jane checks her phone before even reaching for her suitcase. Airline apps send her push alerts about gate changes, delays, and boarding times. The same notifications that now keep 3 out of 4 travelers on track, according to 2025 industry data. She double-checks her mobile boarding pass, watching for that green checkmark instead of hunting for paper copies. A quick glance at the airport's live map reveals if her gate switched or if boarding has started early. Jane taps Notify Me on her airline's app to receive last-minute updates, then sets a backup alert in her calendar, just in case. Walking through security, she keeps an eye on the departure board, but any sudden change will buzz straight to her lock screen. Near the gate, Jane introduces herself to the attendant, confirming the flight and asking if there's any chance of early boarding or a new standby list. Each habit, alerts, digital passes, real-time gate checks, cuts her risk of missing the next call. For Jane, the difference is simple. She's not waiting for a loudspeaker announcement to save her trip. In the year 2025, missing a flight can still void your entire itinerary. American Airlines published policy confirms that a no-show on a non-refundable ticket cancels all future segments, unless you contact them before departure. Delta's same-day standby window and the flat tire rule, as documented on their official site, offer a 2-hour grace period for late arrivals, but require rapid action and proof. Credit card benefits like the American Express Platinum's $500 trip delay coverage after a 6-hour qualifying delay provide real relief but do not cover personal mistakes. Travel insurance can fill gaps, but most policies, according to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, exclude missed flights caused by traffic or oversleeping. While the European Union's EC 261 regulation guarantees rerouting or up to €600 compensation for missed connections within Europe, U.S. law offers no such universal protection. Uncertainties remain. For example, how airlines will interpret new rules as travel patterns shift post-pandemic. But the documented evidence is clear. Knowing your airline's policy, acting quickly, and leveraging all available tools are the keys to minimizing risk. The rules have changed, but informed travelers still have options if they know where to look.